All right, PMAC here. Defensive coordinator chat with a new defensive coach in
Yeah.
Northfield. I am the PLAY development director and the defensive coordinator of Prior Lake High School. I'm really excited to chat some defense today. Um, Nick,
Yeah.
welcome to the dark side.
I'm excited. This is fun. This is fun. I'm excited to, learn more and kind of understand, and I appreciate your time and your expertise in this field. So
Yeah,
I'm
no,
glad you're able to find some time and sit down. So
I I I I'm not going to pretend to be the Bill Belichick of lacrosse defense, but um, I'm always down to have conversations like this and dive into things and get the whiteboard going if we need to today. We'll kind of see where the conversation goes, um, but yeah, excited to talk defense. I know you are a former Fogo,
yeah,
so you probably played some defense, maybe accidentally when you couldn't get off
right,
the field.
right. Unintentional defense, right? So yeah, I guess my main area of knowledge would be how to play D midi. In college, I probably shot once in practice, and they said, "Hey, go practice with the defense when you're not taking faceoffs." But so that's where that kind of lies. I was faceoff coach last year, and quick, grabbed the D coordinator job at Northfield. So there's a lot to learn, a lot to experience that first year, but I'm excited for the challenge. So.
Where do you want to start the conversation today?
Um, I'm a firm believer that the first thing to do, I've head coached a few teams and I've been more assistant. I haven't, this is my first couple of ventures with high school, but culture is super important, right? And teaching players to play with a mindset and teaching players to play together. But if you could just dive into the philosophy and idea of that on the defensive side of the ball, right? It's pretty easy to pick out offensive players and defensive players when they're standing in a line,
For
attitude,
sure.
that sort of thing. But how do you preach, that defensive mindset, defensive culture, that one unit kind of way of playing? Um, and I don't know, that could be a super open-ended question, but
Yeah, no, I think it's probably, team to team,
mhm,
city to city. I like coming up with like a theme or a brand,
okay, okay,
season to season.
yeah,
Um, just to like, get the guys to like buy in. Maybe I'm thinking about something this year where it's like, all right, a different kind of prize for, player
mhm,
of the game, that's kind of general. If you can kind of spice that up.
yeah,
Um, but, to kind of maybe dive deeper into it is like, all right, how do you want them to play? Usually defense, you want them to be a little bit meaner. You want them to be a little bit grittier,
yeah,
a little bit nastier. So getting them to buy into that,
right,
obviously is critical. Um, but too, like the kind of the first thing that popped in my head is like trusting each other too. Like
mhm,
if if a goal gets scored, it's not the goalie's fault. Like that's
right,
there's six other defenders that are working together before the shot gets off. Like things
mhm,
got to break down before that goal happens. And if we're if we're working together, if we're giving up low percentage shots, low percentage opportunities, like if we've got a decent goalie in there, like we should have
mhm.
a good opportunity to keep the ball in the net or not too many goals.
I think secondly, you talk about leadership on the defense, right? And at Northfield, we got a younger goalie coming up. I'm really excited about him. He's fantastic, and he's gonna be good for a long time. But me not spending a lot of time with other goalies, him, whatever it may be, right, is trying to establish a leader, a vocal presence on the defense, right? Because I've met some defensive coordinators that say they don't want their goalies talking at all, and I've met some that hey, they're running the show, right? I was watching film breakdown of Notre Dame's defense over the weekend, and it was almost like watching an artist making a paint. It was so
Yeah.
beautiful, right?
Yeah. Notre
Like
Dame's they play beautifully.
right, and that's nothing to maybe model high school defensive off of, right? But it's definitely beneficial to look after. It's the pinnacle. It's hard to
For
reach.
sure.
But when these guys collapse and they come into the inside, the goalie and two long poles immediately pointing right to where he needs to recover to, and you could see that communication. How do you encourage maybe a singular player to step up into that role and be that vocal leader? I mean, obviously, you got your captains, this, that, whatever. How do you make that decision? How do you gauge that responsibility? And then also, maybe as a follow up, how do you explain that to the player, right? The importance of such a role if they're new to that kind of responsibility.
Yeah, so if you're talking about like the goalie specifically, I think
Hmm.
there's probably an argument there where some people do say like I don't want my goalie worrying about anything but stopping the ball.
Hmm.
And I'm not picking a side, but there's an argument there like, hey, I
Right.
want my goalie stopping the ball, nothing else. He doesn't need to be
Hmm.
worrying about everything else because there's a million other things going on.
Hmm.
Then there's the other side where it's like, hey, I want my goalie being the alpha, being the leader, directing everything and stopping the ball. I
Right.
I I I would probably want to maybe find a middle ground.
Okay.
Especially if you've got a younger goalie, I would maybe
Hmm.
lean towards the other side of like, all right, like let's just get him comfortable and let him,
Yeah.
if he's
Yeah.
like a freshman or sophomore or something, like, all right, let's get him comfortable. Let's let him just worry about stopping the ball.
Hmm.
And then maybe he can grow into maybe that more leadership role as a junior or senior. Um, over time, if he can get comfortable, starting with the communication, just calling out easy stuff like, hey,
Hmm.
ball's right. Hey, do we got a one? I think joining that conversation that should be happening already
Right.
from the four poles on the field, the D mids,
Hmm.
maybe a defensive coach too. Um, if the goalie can join that conversation, and then if you've got a goalie with an alpha personality, a leadership
Gotcha.
personality,
Hmm.
maybe he can be the director of that conversation and stop the ball.
Right.
I don't know if I'd ask a goalie to do that, a young goalie to do that right off the
Middle
hop,
game. Yeah.
unless he's like that guy, right? If he's that guy, great, cool,
Gotcha.
that's awesome.
Gotcha.
But I don't think it needs to be the
One
goalie.
way or the other. Okay.
Or one way or the other. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it needs to be one way or the other.
Hmm.
Um, that's my opinion on that. I am more. I'd probably lean towards the side of like it doesn't need to be the goalie. I think it should be a group conversation
Right.
constantly of what's going on. What sliding for example. Hey, I'm the one. I'm the one. Who's my two? It should be three, four, five guys having a conversation
Hmm.
at all times.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Um, yeah. That makes total sense. So a lot of it, what I'm starting to kind of gather is that it is gauging the room, getting a feel for personality and playing to personality strengths. So, and this is it's right, it's a decision to make when you take over. Are you going to make your kids play in a system you've decided, or are you going to make the system reflect the kids who are playing? Right? I'm kind of under the opinion that like if I'm not doing the work on the field, it's hard for me to force them into positions, right?
Sure.
Um, so that makes total sense. We can kind of switch, gauges here, and we can definitely come back to it. I've got a whole list of stuff over here, right?
Yeah,
Stick work's really important, and that's maybe a classic outage at youth where it's like, hey, you're not scoring many goals. You want to try out a long pole? Um, Wall ball routines, right? Pressure passing drills, those kind of things. If you could give me some examples,
for
benefit,
sure.
just kind
Um,
of like everyday stuff that should be happening.
yeah. No, and I think I don't want to assume, but I'm going to assume that maybe some coaches think defenders don't need stick work or as much. I don't know
Mhm.
if that's a thing, if that's a bad assumption. Um, I will
It is
tell
a thing.
you, I
It
will
is a
tell, yeah, and I
thing.
and I will tell you, um, that's very wrong.
Mhm.
If that's a sentiment out there, I think D pulls their stick work is essential for so many parts of the game. Maybe
Right.
they're not like leading an offense all the time,
Mhm.
but if you just start from where they are, if you talk about clearing, right?
Mhm.
If you can't clear the ball, it's going to be really hard to get the ball to your offense, right? Like
Right.
if you're
Right.
just giving the ball back over and over again, you can't execute a clear with your long poles.
Hmm.
It's gonna make things really, really difficult. So, um, I agree. Like stick work should be an everyday thing.
Okay.
Working on the overs, right?
Yeah.
That you can do something as simple as literally just partner passing and lengthening that out
Yeah.
to box passing. Like if you're doing some goalie stuff in the middle,
Hmm.
again, like our constraints, during the high school season, right? A lot of times is space. So if you've got goalie stuff kind of going on in the middle, if you got 10 minutes of positional time, all right, we want to work on some long passing. You could just make a big square around the goalies kind of and just, working
Hmm.
that around. Um, if you want to get the goalies involved with which I would also recommend, you can kind of do the simple like over through
Yeah.
different variations with
Okay.
that.
Hmm.
If you want me to visualize that, I can. I've got the whiteboard on
Yeah.
the screen.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, basically we can do something as simple as right
Hmm.
banana out, right?
Right.
Um, right? Kick this ball to a defender, right? They can
Hmm.
push upfield, get a roll back, over, push upfield, get a roll back, over. So you're getting a couple overs, and then
Yeah.
through the goalie, right? You got these lines going, and you're ripping guy after guy after guy, right? Depending on
Right.
how many deep balls you get, right? You can get a bunch of reps. You could also add a third line here, right? So you could get an
Hmm.
over, and then a stretch, so you're, working upfield too. So that's just a quick example and a few different ways you could play with this drill.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, working on your overs, adding that clearing element, getting the goalies involved. Um, is another simple way to get stick work in. That's emulating right clearing as well. So you're kind of getting
Yeah.
a two for one. I think stick work. Um, having when you're in the middle of a high school season, maybe you're doing scout team stuff, having them emulate offense, like being offensive
Okay.
players, touching the ball, um, that's great too. Like that's
Okay.
getting them more stick work, getting comfortable with the ball. And then when you're running transition drills, having a pole, having an LSM, be involved in that transition, just like
Hmm.
actually what you just mentioned, right? Pushing transition, that's working on stick work too. So,
Right. Okay.
um,
Are you a believer in and I don't know where I stand. Well, I guess I do know where I stand, but I want to hear your thoughts. Stick work during practice, it depends on the age level, right? If I like when I coached U14 and U12
yeah,
a piece. U12 ton of stick work. If you have a U12 team and they can complete passes in a circle in under 20 seconds, you're going to score a ton of goals. Um, but for high school, right? I mean, do you have programs for monitoring that, reward programs? I like, because you don't want to spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes trying to get the boys set up for, you know, like the clearing drill is great, but like the partner passing, that sort of thing. Like, do you find that balance? Is there a point in the season where you cut it off and you're like, okay,
I think
now it's,
it's I think
you know,
it's still an everyday thing,
okay.
where we're doing stick work. Um, in the past, we've done like a combo, dynamic stretching with your partner passing. So, for
Oh,
example,
okay, nice.
you
Yeah,
could do right on right, and then
yeah,
get a bunch of reps for a minute or two, whatever. Then you're doing
nice.
high knees butt kickers, left on
Right.
left.
Mhm.
And you can make any sort of like
Better thing.
dynamic, partner passing,
Mhm.
dynamic with that. So you're getting a bunch of touches. You're getting loose. You're kind of easing into practice, which
Right.
some people like. Some people want to jump into practice, right away, which is
Yeah.
cool too. So that might be one negative to it. You're kind of easing into
Mhm.
practice, but you're getting touches, you're in your dynamic, kind of a two for one there. Um, but I would say, maybe to expand on partner passing, we're doing full field type passing
Okay.
or five stars or three man
Right.
weaves on a daily basis, even
Okay.
at the high school level.
Okay. Yeah. Um, and that makes total sense. Okay, I like that. Another quick thing that we've got down here for some notes, positional footwork.
Yeah.
Because, I could throw down a speed ladder and say, all right, we're going to do 100 iterations of this, that, and the other, right?
Yeah.
But are there any options that I could throw in some positional footwork that would emulate like their actual defensive set, right? Or their slide packages, or, right? So that way you can kind of get them, a little bit up on the agility side. We're learning something at the same time, and you're taking it at a slower pace as well, right? So that they can kind of ease into it.
Yeah, I think I've got a few different ideas. Ladders are good, they're fine. Um, I think, with and right cone drills for footwork, right, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff is fine.
Mhm.
I think what you're getting at is, how can I make it better? How can I make it more realistic?
Right.
Ladder drills. I like to add ground balls to it, right?
Okay.
So you're doing a ladder and then you're out of that ladder you're running through a ground ball, or maybe you're getting a ground ball thrown at you and it's a harder ground ball, or maybe you're getting a ground ball, you're rolling and you're making a
Gotcha.
pass, right?
Yeah.
Adding little simple, it's simple, you gotta think about it,
Mhm.
you gotta come up with it, but it's simple things to like, okay,
Mhm.
how can we spice up this ladder drill to not only get better footwork, maybe some conditioning. Let's work on some passing and ground balls out of it too.
Right.
I think there's a lot of different things with cone footwork you can do around the net, right? So you
Okay.
can work on backpedaling, and emulating when you're around the crease, right? You're turning guys, you're
Mhm.
running through the crease over the net in the back. Um, I think you can definitely play with various footworks, various parts of the field,
Mhm.
emulating and trying to spice it up to emulate. Okay, I'm doing this, and it's similar to what maybe I'm defending a guy behind the net.
Right.
I'm jumping over the net.
Mhm.
After I turn him, he's trying to get to the other side of the field. Maybe I'm doing footwork on a ladder
Mhm.
into some passing situations or some ground ball situations.
Right. Okay. Okay. Very cool. And then you would do that almost. You could probably pair that with like a stick work dynamic stretch and make a 25 to half hour routine daily, every other day, whatever it is, and you just kind of run that, you
I,
know?
I think I think looking at it kind of from a team wise, your
Yeah,
partner passing or your warm up passing is probably everybody.
yeah,
Um, then you can, if you have positional time, or if
right.
you're going offense defense for 10 to 30 minutes a day, probably depending on the part of the season, how much field
Gotcha.
time you have,
Mhm.
et cetera, for in your case at Northfield. Um, maybe you can, start dialing up, defensive specific footwork, defense specific, footwork with some stick work, whatever it
Yeah.
might be.
Okay, okay. Very cool. We can go down the list here. I just keep writing down more questions the more
No,
we
it's
talk.
great.
This
That's great.
is great.
I'm in no
Um,
rush. Dinner's
we
not
can get
soon.
into the nitty-gritty. We got a whole bunch of things, I'm sure we could talk for hours. A couple of things I want to touch on, and I'll let you decide what we do first, right? Clearing philosophy. I've got on here that I just wrote down. Um, Two-man game offense, working with each other on a defense, ton of drills there. But philosophy as far as, you know, going behind the net, like, different things like that. And then like what principles or pillars you would install with the defense, man up, or sorry, man down, man on man. Like, are there any, blaring rules out there? Like for me, I'm familiar with a few on offense where like man up offense, the obvious one is you don't really dodge, right? Is there anything like that that you would obviously apply to a man down defense other than, the basic principles of playing in a zone or box and string or whatever it may be, but just maybe some things that some newer coaches may not be familiar with?
Yeah, let's rip through all of that. Let's start
Mhm.
with clearing since we've kind
Okay.
of been on the stick work. We've kind of
Yeah.
teased clearing, I feel like.
Right.
So let's go there first. Um, I guess where and I know you're a new D coordinator at Northfield. Like, do you know what they run or what you want to run, or are you kind of going back to like let's
I
let's whiteboard this and like what could we potentially do?
Right. I want to come in with my own system and tweak it from there.
Yeah.
And that just I look back to what we did in high school and college. In high school, we ran like an attack and midi switch on the far side midline to drag a defender over, and then had some middies, banana curl in, defenders get wide, push the alleys, right? I personally am a very pro goalie guy, right? So if the option isn't there, I'm cool with him taking it up as much as he can, forcing a guy to play him, right? And we go from there. Um, but again, those are kind of just like rules that I like and have seen work in the past. But as far as establishing, like Northfield's clear, I don't necessarily have that down yet, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Fair enough. So I'm gonna share my screen again, and hopefully this will. I'm gonna try something different this time. So if we're looking at this field, we got our
Mhm.
goalie, we've got our 6 players.
Right,
I know you mentioned sending guys over, getting an attack over.
right.
Um, I think I would look at that as a wrinkle to a clear,
Okay, okay.
or um, or a curveball. Like if you're having,
Yeah.
if they're just riding you hard and they've got you figured out that day, and you need
Mhm.
like kind of a cheat code, that's when I would maybe throw something like that in, versus having that be your base clear.
Right.
Um, that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, yeah.
I could be wrong or incorrect, but I think there's a couple things to consider. Um, One is this kind of third pole here.
Okay.
Um, I don't know, like that's going to be your number one thing. What do you want to do with your third pole? This
Mhm,
LSM, I assume he's going to probably be up and out, right, and
mhm.
coming for a
Right,
midi,
right.
right? That's pretty typical. If you've got a sweet LSM, right, maybe you're gunning him and you're trying to
Mhm.
hit him and he's pushing transition, right? That could be a move for you. But right, typically, fundamentally,
Right.
most coaches out there, right, you kind of a principle to the clear, right? You want to get
Mhm.
shorties on the field, right? You want to
Yeah.
get the ball to short six quickly, um, and early and often.
Mhm.
So that LSM, he's going to probably be up and out, right? You got a short stick here, right? They're going to probably be cutting, and typically, right, they're flowing opposite box, right? So box is over here. Typically, they're making a cut, and then they're kind of flowing opposite box, right? This midi, um, cutting early, and then he's going to probably drift somewhere. And it's, in my opinion, it's going to probably depend on what you're going to do with this third pole, right? This pole,
Right.
you're going to probably go 3 low.
Yep.
Um, I'm seeing more 2 low at higher levels.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but that's probably chapter 5 of clearing. So
Right.
if we're kind of thinking about, basic clearing here and basic
Mhm.
principles, right? You're gonna have your 2 middies kind of go out to the alleys, right? And kind of work up together.
Okay.
This third pull, um if I'm going chapter 1, right?
Mhm.
You could just hop into a L clear, right? So maybe
Yeah.
this midi would be over, right? Maybe this midi would be more in the middle, and this guy can go up and away, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're working this side. Um,
Mhm.
they're a basic ride. They're either going to be in a kind of a 3-3 drop zone ride, or they're just going to
Right.
man to man it.
Mhm.
If there's an attackman, most teams in our state, right? If this midi goes over, that attackman is just going to stay on sides, and that could be an easy one, easy
Right.
little
Right.
right. If this midi gets open or one of these midis gets open, great, boom, right? You're over, you're on sides, right? easy money.
Mm-hmm.
You could also put this defenseman in the middle of the field, right? You can be pushing, um, you can have like these middies kind of have them in different lanes here, right?
Yeah.
Working here, right? Um, and this deep hole will probably end up occupying a midi or an attackman, somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if not, if they're like, oh, that's a pull, let's leave them, right? Could be an easy one.
Right.
Um, right. And then at the same time, right, this was an LSM coming up and out, right? You're pushing here, you got middies, you can get an over or through the goalie, right? And then this midi will be coming out of the box in kind of this far lane. This will often be open, right? If you can flip that field and get it up quickly.
Yeah.
Um, I again, I don't want to assume where Northfield's at. I don't know where Northfield's at, with their systems and things. Kind
Mm-hmm.
of a third option would be getting this pull off and getting
Yeah.
four shorties on the field.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot more that goes into it. You need a good box coach,
Mm-hmm.
making
Mm-hmm.
sure guys stay on side. There's a
Yeah,
lot more that goes
you
into it.
do.
Is that what
Right.
did Farmington run that or no?
Yeah, a similar version. Soini's great at what he does.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're exactly right. You would need a dedicated box coach
Yep.
for, I mean, yeah.
You're
So,
going to need a box coach and you're going to need players knowing when they can go over the midline and when they can't.
yes.
Um, Again, this is a chapter 2 or 3 clear, in
Mhm.
my opinion. Youth
Mhm.
coaches, you're not running this. May-
Right.
Maybe, if you fully understand it, maybe a U14A team.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I love it, right? But exactly like you said, it would take, a lot of monitoring, a lot of coming in, and especially as a new coach. I mean, that's great to have in the back pocket. What I'll do, honestly, is probably test the waters and see, where are our limits for how much we can throw in,
yeah,
right? Who's standing with what level of knowledge and what thing. Um, so yeah, those are all great examples, at kind of staggering levels as well. So I really like that.
yeah, yeah. I think um, the easiest one to implement would be the L clear,
Yeah.
where call these your middies, call these your deep balls. Right? That's
Mhm.
probably the easiest one to implement. And then you could do a bunch of different stuff with your MIDI. You could have them rotate, triangle cutting. You could have them
Right.
cutting up and down, staying in their lanes. That would be the easiest version
Mhm.
um, to implement, in my opinion. Um, and it can be super effective. Like just because it's
Yeah.
easy and simple doesn't mean it's not effective. Like this look at a lot of levels, having this guy push up and
Mhm.
having this pull pop over, that's a look at every level that can work.
Right.
So just because it's
And and correct me if I'm wrong, right? Like you could throw an absolute masterclass of a switch through the box at any moment, right? But if the poles and the players on the field don't have the stick skills and the vision to
100%.
keep up with the change, what are you
It,
going to do, right?
you're
I
right.
mean, if it's simple and you have incredible athletes in the back end, why would you ever change it? Um, so yeah, I mean, just reiterating what I said again. I mean, it's perfect examples at staggering levels. If you've got great athletes who are new, first year D pools that can run like a horse, but don't know how to hold their stick, right? There's options at all of those levels. So,
Yeah, critical things. To kind of close out clearing.
hmm
One, try to hit your short sticks as early as you can. Hit short sticks
okay.
early in the clear. Try to clear quickly. Because especially at the higher levels you go, right? We're talking varsity right now. Once they get into the ride, right? Time's
hmm
ticking. It's only going to get harder and harder. Throughout the clear. So if you can get it to your
hmm
shorty, get it up and out quickly, right? That's option one. That's great.
yeah,
That you can gain transition out of that. Um, And then too, you started talking about it, right? Stick work, right? These deep holes, like we got to be able to hit it over. Like
Yeah.
if we can't flip the field,
Yeah.
um, and again, there's a lot of teams that can't. Like
Mhm.
there's a lot of teams that struggle, right? We're driving up field, right? There's pressure, we're getting turned, and them trying to hit the over and they're sailing it, or they're short or whatever, or they don't
Right.
or they can't catch the over, whatever it is.
Right.
Um, that's make or break because you go
Mhm.
two possessions in a row, you're getting scored on. Like it's just
Right.
it's so tough.
And there are some teams, and it's kind of dying off now. I actually saw it in college lacrosse last weekend, a 10-man ride, combating
Yeah.
that with a clear. I saw Georgetown did it against Johns Hopkins, and it backfired in half a second. But schools do run it, right? Is that something you're thinking about as it's happening? What are the adjustments you would make? I mean, it may not happen to you often. I know there's a couple schools in the Big Nine that run that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's not super common, but I think Mankato and Northfield did last year.
Interesting.
And so, yeah.
Um, yeah, I feel like 10-man ride. I don't know if I'd call it a lost art. I feel like it's fading a little bit,
Yeah.
becoming less popular. I
Mhm.
I maybe it'll resurge. I don't know. Um, my number my number one tip to clear against a 10-man ride has to do with where is their advantage? And that's a
Right.
question. That's a question to you. Where
Mhm.
is their advantage?
Advantage for the clearing defense?
For
Right.
so we are the clearing. We're talking about clearing against a
Yes.
10-man ride.
Yes.
Where is the riding team's advantage?
The riding team's advantage,
Yes.
midfield. I mean, on ball. I mean, it's hard for me to even talk about a huge advantage. I mean, when you pull
Okay,
the
where's the
goalie out
clearing
and you
where's the
slide him out.
clearing where's the clearing team's advantage? Let's flip the question. Where's the
Yeah.
clearing team's advantage?
Middies open net. I mean, I don't know if I have a clear answer.
It's so the advantage
Mhm.
is on either side of the 50-yard line.
Right.
So the clearing
Okay.
team, you've got 7 players, they've got 6, right? On this side of the field, they have 4,
Yeah.
you have 3,
Right.
right? And so let's visualize for the people watching, right? So you've got your attack
Mhm.
somewhere in here, right? You'll probably move them around. I wouldn't, if you're seeing a 10-man ride, I would not put my attack like this. But let's just let's just make it super obvious, right?
Right.
So their advantage is this guy
Mhm.
right here, right? He's the roamer, he's the tiger, whatever they call
Yeah.
him, the 10-man, right?
Right.
Usually this guy has a name of some sort,
Mhm.
right? This is their advantage. So my number one recommendation is to condense your clear, right? Sometimes you're stretching guys, right? You
Mhm.
that plays into their advantage. So uh number one, clear quickly,
Mhm.
clear clear very as quickly as you can, like even more so against the 10-man ride.
Think so.
Like get it to your short sticks as early and quickly as possible, right? So you can break their 10-man.
Right.
The other thing is, right, you're not don't stretch guys, right?
Mhm.
Condense your clear, like almost make it tighter and lower into your zone, right? So you win your match, like you got to win the clear more so in here versus up in here because
Right.
that's where the madness is. So
Right.
win the clear here, and
Mhm.
then you gotta be an athlete and break their 10-man once
Okay.
you get over that 50.
Yeah. Perfect. And again, I don't know how many times I'll see it, right?
Yeah,
But it does happen. I mean, coaching with Farmington last year, we saw it a handful of times.
yeah,
And so, again, it could be a trend. It could not be. It's not anything I would ever throw in a game plan.
yeah.
Um, but it does happen, and it's important to know those things. So I appreciate that.
for sure.
Right. Make the fourth man's job, inevitable, and give him the least amount of ability to impact as possible.
Yeah.
Um, Perfect. And I don't know if we touched on like goalie involvement. I know talked about being pro goalie. But do you share that philosophy, right? If there's not an option, if the ride is super hard, are you cool with goalie taking it up,
Yep.
taking it,
Yep.
drawing as many as he can and dumping like that?
For sure. So yeah, goalie. I can't move him around, but goalie is going to be super involved in the clear, right? These
Mhm.
three are going to, and again, what they what the goalie needs to do is going to kind of depend on what they're doing, right? If they're just doing
Mhm.
a lockout clear, right?
Yeah.
Let's just say, right, you get your 2 minute. Let's just move this guy over here for the sake of it, right? And I'm gonna add a guy. So this is the goalie. He's walking it up, right?
Mhm.
Defense are staying even with him, right?
Mhm.
And they're just
Yep.
locking out, right? He can just keep on walking, and if if that's what they're gonna do, actually the first goal against Benilde last year, this is exactly what happened, and he just
Right.
went right down the middle of the field and scored.
Yeah. Jefferson, right?
Jefferson did it too. Prior Lake,
Okay.
we
Oh,
our first goal of the game, the first goal of the game was just our goalie,
yeah.
and he's just like, okay, he just kept
Yeah.
going. He's like, all right,
Why not?
I guess I'm gonna
Yeah.
shoot.
Nice.
So,
Nice. That's pretty
um,
sweet.
but yeah, goalies are super involved.
Mhm.
Right as you're working up the field, general rule of thumb is these defensemen don't want to get behind the goalie,
Right.
right? So because if
He's got no help.
if these attackmen are riding, right,
Mhm.
boom, boom, and if the goalie with the ball is ahead of them, right, this is a free blind, right? There, he's going to get blown up.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
these three.
Where do you want the middies? Do you want them to kind of just push up in preparation of that? Do you want them kind of getting out of the middle, right? Obviously, there's not much room for them to cut the more the goalie pushes. Do you want them to just kind of follow that same trend and coming up field
So yeah, it kind of
and
depends on
locking
like
up?
where you're going to have people.
Right.
So if you're keeping them wide, or if you've got a guy in here, right,
Hmm.
they're kind of V cutting, they're trying to get open. Maybe they're stretching up, stretching down.
Right.
Maybe you're having them rotate. There's a million different things you could do.
Hmm.
Um, so let's just say, um, you're gonna have this guy coming out of the box, kind of driving down.
Right.
Maybe on this side, um, you're starting like kind of like this. You could have one cut down and the other one stretch, right? And you could kind
Okay.
of do something like that.
Yeah.
Um, you could get really weird with it, having this guy cut across the field. Maybe he's stretching. Maybe this guy's coming across. You could do
Gotcha.
you
Yeah.
could do
Any
triangles.
combination of
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
Yep.
You could get as weird with it as you want.
All right. Yeah. Sweet. Sweet. Um, that's kind of all I've got for clearing.
Okay, two-man
Um,
game.
yeah, two-man game or just, offensive sets, right? Being in section one, defending two-man game is a priority for just about everybody.
Okay.
Um, and that's a big part of it. I don't love guys going behind the net and following and risking a switch. It kind of depends on the team as well, right? And the polls that are available. Um, and so what are the priorities? What are the rules? I mean, communication is key above everybody, and that's kind of the exploit, right? Two band game from behind the net is how you catch guys not looking. So
Um, let's see here. So if I'm just setting up, I'm not gonna make it super weird, basic two,
mhm.
three, one.
Yeah,
Um, I assume, are you gonna be running man?
yeah.
Yep. So a man defense, great.
Hmm.
Um, so couple things on two-man game. Um, and I'm not saying I'm not picking a side on this is kind of the goalie owning the defense or
Hmm.
just stopping the ball. This is there's some things within two-man game. that you could kind of decide that you want to think about. That could be, one, do you want to be a very matchup oriented defense, right? Where, all right, this game we're playing Mankato. Johnny is guarding number 6, and I want Johnny
Right.
on number 6 all game long. I want him. I want him all over him. I don't care if they throw picks at him. I don't care if they
Mhm.
clear out the rest of the team. I don't care if they put him in the corner. I don't care if they put him up top. Um, Johnny's guarding 6.
Right.
Another, or you could be on the completely other side of, I don't care about matchups. Johnny's gonna start on 6, but yeah, I don't really, as
Mhm.
the possession progresses and things move around. I don't, I if Johnny ends up on 7, I don't really care. Like it,
Right.
so
And that's probably the camp where I lie, and it depends on the scouting report, right? Depending on the team we're playing, I'm totally fine with saying, okay, you're locking him down, and we're playing 5-on-5.
yeah,
That's cool with me, right? If they've got a major threat attackman that's just lighting it up, okay, Johnny, you're on him. Don't let him get involved. But I want the base, right? What everybody, I think, should be prepared for is that team style of defense, right? More people on the same page with the same level of understanding, I think equates the most success.
yeah,
In that regard, like the more kids I have just knowing where to go when stuff happens, um, rather than putting a lot of pressure in those situations. So for
for
me, it
sure.
varies, but
So yeah, as we talk about this, you talked about a 2-man game, from behind.
mhm,
Um, let's say they do a pass down, kind of pick through, right?
right,
Different areas of the field. Some people kind of change up. It could be a matchup thing on what they're trying to do.
mhm,
But in general, right? We get a pass down, right? Seven's picking. And again, these guys are going to have to communication, right? We haven't actually talked a lot about communication, right? This is
true.
right when you're in team defense, right? Communication, right, is essential. So
Number
are
one.
we are we is this guy setting a hard pick in a tough area where this defender's definitely going to kind of get hung up and run into him, right? We better be switching, right?
Right.
We should be talking about, hey, there's a hard pick, right? If
Mhm.
we're switching, cool. If we're getting really aggressive, maybe we're trying to get a double team on it, cool, great. If this guy's trying to slip, hey, stay. It's a soft pick, right? And we got to stay with them, right? And they go right, and we're just trying to hold our matchups, right? That's cool too. You
Uh-huh.
as a team, as Northfield, you guys get to decide, on, all right, how hard do we want to try to hold matchups, or do we not really care?
Right. Right.
So that's something to think about. It also could be location on the field. If they're way back here, hanging out, right, doing a little 2-man game, right? Maybe we just try to, stick with it, right?
Mhm.
If there's a pick on GLE coming, and if this guy
Mhm.
gets around this pick and it's their best player, well, all right, we'll try to hold our matchups back there, but on around GLE, we got to just bomb it, and we got to try to shut that down. Some things to think about. Another thing to think about, like, so if this guy's picking, it's the picker. One thing we talk about is like being in the shadow.
Mhm.
So it'd be like right here, right? You want to be like in the shadow of the picker, right, to be able to help.
Right.
Um,
Bookends.
Bookends. Yep, precisely. Um, a couple of times, right? Again, this is probably like a chapter 2 thing, right? When we played a specific team, specific player, they were kind of running a pick situation in this area of the field,
Mhm.
and we didn't want to play it like tight. And maybe
Mhm.
this is kind of bad graphically, but like we didn't want to play it tight in that
Right.
corner. We
Right.
actually just wanted to like lay off of it and kind of let
Mhm.
them come to us because we weren't
Right.
worried about that part of the field, and
Presume
we knew it
pressure.
was coming.
Right. You don't
So
want to get beat 20 yards away from the net.
right.
Right. And you want the options and the stability. That makes total sense.
So two-man game, I think a few things that are critical. Are we trying to hold matchups, or
Hmm.
are we switching everything, or maybe it's somewhere in the middle? Maybe it depends on the part of the field. Um, right. So communication. Are we holding or are we switching? Um, two-man game. What else? Are we getting aggressive? Like, you can try to throw in a double, right? You
Right.
can you can get aggressive off of it. Um, and then kind of out of it, like depending on where they're doing it, like you might need some help out of this. Like, because if this two-man game gets beat, um, right, are we helping from here? Right? Are we helping adjacent?
Yeah.
Are we helping crease?
Hmm.
Um, another thing to think about. Like you need help from the
Yeah.
next pair or
And
the crease.
that's another debate I've heard. AJ slides being, all the rage and you should do it, and the worst thing in the world. Um, and it might just boil down to situationally. AJ is probably the easiest, most dependable thing you can install right away. You know, um,
So for those listening, right, AJ's adjacent. Adjacent means
yeah.
next to,
Hmm.
or sliding from crease, right? So just give a quick visual to our listeners. Blues on offense, oranges on defense. Okay. Let's say two has the ball, right?
Hmm.
Super simple, dodging down the alley,
Right.
right? Or actually, let's do a sweep. Let's do a sweep. We're sweeping across, right?
Hmm.
Five is probably sloughed in here, right? Somewhere in this area, right?
Yeah.
There's two foods of thought, right? Do we want to come adjacent, right? Which isn't right or isn't wrong, right? But it's
Yeah.
it's what do we want to run, right?
Hmm.
Do we want to come adjacent, right? They bang it one more, right? We got to be ready to go. We got to be ready to
Hmm.
go. We got to be ready to bump over, and we got to be ready to recover, kind of in and out,
Yeah.
right? So everyone is kind of on a circle on a die, right? Rotating,
Hmm.
um, which is cool. Or right, five gets beat to the middle. And again, this could be down the alley. This could be anywhere. This could be from behind. This could be anywhere on the field. Right. Three's guarding eight. Right. We could just come from this crease area, and you're like, whoa, 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 holy smokes, crease is wide open. Well, this guy's going to probably be above crease, kind of helping in here,
Hmm.
or above GLE
GLE.
helping in
Yeah.
here. Right. We're going to be sloughing in. We're,
Hmm.
we're we're sloughed in a little bit. We're probably sloughed in a little bit. So you're gonna have guys in here, right? So we slide from crease, right? This guy recovers to crease, and then you're bumping out. And again, this could happen. This could be right. We're dodging down the alley. Boom! This guy gets toasted. Right? We're helping in on the backside, some sort. Right?
Hmm.
Maybe more or less. Right? From different players. Right? We're sliding from five. One's recovering to crease.
Yeah.
Right? And we're bumping back out. Um, I obviously, right, if they don't have a crease,
Hmm.
probably not sliding from crease. So you got to definitely have adjacent slide packages available and known. Um, you don't really ever have to slide from crease if you don't want to. We
Okay.
do. We slide from crease. We have a crease package. We've got a adjacent package.
Hmm.
Um, and then sometimes we like to do some weird stuff. And try different things too.
Right.
Um, so I guess I wouldn't say I'm anti AJ or pro AJ. I am pro
Okay.
AJ. I'm pro
Yeah.
AJ. Right? It's
Yeah.
it, it's part of the playbook. Um, and so is Crease.
Okay. Yeah. So you see the equal benefit in both, not one way or the other.
Yeah. I think
You
it's situational.
know.
I think it could be schematic at the higher levels at youth. Um, I would teach both.
Yeah. Okay. Teach both at youth. Love that. I don't know if you have something you want to go to next. We kind of covered,
I had
I
man
think, the
down
man.
that
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
you
great.
ripped out a man
Yeah.
down. And again, I'm in no rush. We can take as long as you want. Man down, what is like what's your major question, or what's your kind of major like, where's your head at for man down?
I'm looking for what are we looking for, right? A lot of different things I've seen from a defensive perspective. I've seen a zone with like a free slide and, kind of like boxing string a little bit, but he's just like, you know, moving with the ball, being activated in that way, or staying on his guy if necessary. I don't know. I'm still trying to understand what I like or what
Sure.
from that point of view.
Yeah.
So,
A couple thing. I'll give you a couple things to think about and where my head goes for man down.
mhm,
Um, and then we can kind of go from there. So let's just say they're in a 3-3 just to simplify this a little bit. So
yeah,
offense, for again, newer coaches, offense is in a 3-3. So three guys up, three guys down, kind of across. And
mhm,
again, they're going to be moving around, right? It's not going to look exactly like this,
right,
but to conceptualize 3-3, couple things to think about. You can run, um, if you kind of want to do like a 5-man rotation, right? You could do a 2-3 defensively, so two guys up, three guys down. Um,
okay,
and in this instance, I'm kind of baiting this high middle shot, right? So if this guy wants to take a shot from 15, if you got a pretty good goalie who sees the ball well, right? You can
right.
bait
Easiest
this.
shot to save. I mean, conceptually from goalie, right?
Exactly. So if we can bait this, right, these guys are going to be pinching in as the situation goes, right? And this guy, right, offensively should want to try to draw you, right? So if
Yeah.
again, say he does, he steps in, right? Boom, bangs the ball, right? We're rotating, right? Five
Mhm,
man, right? Working in, working out, sticks in lanes, right? Trying to take up space, right? Man down, you're trying to take up space. You're trying to guard multiple guys. If you can guard two guys, right? Because
mhm,
we're short a guy, maybe not two. If everyone can guard a guy and a half, buy a little bit of time and take up more space than usual, right? You're just trying to kill the 30 seconds. You're trying to kill the minute,
right.
whatever it might be.
Mhm,
Um, So 5-man, right? We're rotating. They're working the ball, right? Hopefully we can get back to our shape. Oftentimes, especially at the lower levels, um, right? You'll be this guy, he'll be like stepping in, and either if this player is really cocky, he'll take like a 20-yard bomb, and you're just like,
yeah,
yep, gumball,
yeah.
thanks.
Thank
Right?
you.
Let,
Mhm,
let's let's clear this. Um, Otherwise, a lot of times this guy he won't draw the defender, right? So if this guy never draws the defender, we're holding our shape, and all they're doing is just working the ball on the outside, not generating anything. So
right.
that's kind of what I like about this look, especially at youth, lower levels, right? Or even just throwing this at them maybe to start the game. Hey, let's get into our
Mhm,
base look, 2-3. Let's see what they got. Let's see. Let's just try to hold our shape and buy some time.
right.
They'll probably pick up, especially at the higher levels, they'll pick this up. They'll get you rotating. Maybe you got to jump into something else. Um, other coaches, right? Like a 3-2, right? So they're kind of baiting. Um, they're kind of playing. The top guy's more aggressive, and these lower guys are kind of guarding a guy and a half, right? So
Mhm,
let's say ball's over here, right? We're sloughing in, this guy's sloughing down, right? Guarding the crease guy. Working the ball around, right? We're bumping back out, we're bumping back out, we're bumping in, we're bumping in, right? And this guy can kind of work in and out. Three,
mhm,
two, another similar, right? Again, if we have to rotate, it's the 5-man rotation, just like the 2-3. Similar, but another look that a lot of coaches, base look easy. Um, I would say the third thing to think about, man down, is the infamous box and string, right? So this is where we're getting a little crazier. Maybe we got a really athletic deep hole, right? Mutant
yeah.
U14 maybe, right? And he's
Mhm,
just we just want to get crazy with it, right? So as the balls on the kind of the outside, right? He's guarding in. Once it gets up, right? He's jumping out, we're getting in, then we're kind of pinching from the bottom, helping. and we're trying to get to hands, right? Once he
Right.
moves it off, we're back, we're getting back in, right, and then bumping back out. So
Yep.
again, man down, we're trying to take up space, we're trying to guard a guy and a half,
Mhm.
and we're just trying to kill that time, get to sixes.
Right. Right. And one thing that I've been trying to reiterate to my players on defense, and it wasn't always totally clear to me as a high schooler, is that a win on defense isn't always a turnover. A win on
Correct.
defense isn't always a clear. A win on defense could be forcing a pass,
Yep,
right?
for
And that's
sure.
huge. Like if you're a D midi and you're bummed about it, like that's a huge positive to the position. If you are forcing passes regularly and not taking many dodges and not falling behind, you're a good D midi. You're a great defensive player, right?
For sure.
Sometimes players don't realize it's kind of a little thing, right? But especially on man up, if you can get in and out with that urgency, and again, just like you said, kill that clock, make them waste their own time, even better. So,
A couple bonus points,
mhm,
especially at the varsity level. You can kind of mess around with your short stick. And I guess you could do this at the youth level too.
mhm,
Um, you could mess around, maybe you have your short stick on the middle guy, right? And you want your pulls on the outside.
mhm.
Maybe they've got maybe number 5 here is a shooter. Maybe he's their guy. Maybe
Yeah.
you're gonna throw your short stick and face guard him.
Okay. Okay.
Different thing. Again, something to think about. Um,
Any any particular reason, like what would be the benefit
of face guarding.
of throwing a short stick out rather than a pull? If we're like
You
playing a
could
zone
you
and they're going
could
in and out,
you could
like
do it with a pull, um, but you'd rather your pulls kind of be in the action, right?
okay.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, if you've got a short, right, if you can just get a
right.
short stick and lock him out, like I
Mhm.
think I'd rather do it with the short stick if
Okay,
possible.
okay,
So you can kind of play around location and
right.
what your short stick's doing. Another thing to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Um, yeah, and man down communication as well, super important.
Yeah.
Probably more of a time, I mean, going back to that basis of getting your goalie up to speed, right? Man down's probably pretty huge for that as well. Um, not a lot of directing, but a lot of, shot facing in and out, quick communication, all that's great. Um, I don't know. Do you got something else on the list you want to go to next? I got questions for days, PMAX, so we could keep going for hours, I'm sure. But
I think just keep ripping what you got. I think I had
okay,
some of my initial stuff, but no, I think I like the vibe. So what do you
great.
got? What do you got?
I'm going to throw this out there because it
Okay.
was a staple in my high school program, and I've heard nothing but horrible things about it. Okay, and I don't know if you know what I'm going to say. A V hold,
Oh, yeah.
right? Huge, widely taught when I was, whatever, right? Got to college, don't ever do it. Worst thing ever. But defensive pressure, getting in hands, body position, if you could kind of illustrate the ideal of what that looks like from a long pull and from a D midi, right? And again, a lot of that comes from the offensive set, but just, as we go through and we've kind of been doing it, like the pillars, the rules of each situation,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, what do you look for? What do you like to see? What's the first thing you're telling a guy?
Yeah. So talking about getting to hands, body positioning, physicality, how I want that
Mhm.
to look. Um, V hold has gotten quite some heat lately.
A
Um,
lot of heat.
I think it's gotten a lot of heat. I think some of it's unnecessary.
Okay.
I think it. I think it was right around when I went to college too. Of
Mhm.
when the V hold started getting hate. I think it's originating from. It's almost like a hockey hook where
Right.
people think, oh, you're being lazy and you're like kind of hooking the guy.
Yeah.
And if you do a V hold wrong, and you're just kind of dragging the guy and you're holding the guy, you could get a
Right.
holding penalty. You can't just depend on throwing your stick in front of them like V hold
Mhm.
if you're watching the video. or yeah, if you're watching, so V hold, you can't just throw it out there
Mm-hmm.
and it's end all be all. You've got to move your feet. You've got to drive,
Mm-hmm.
get
Right.
under his arm with your stick, the whole
Mm-hmm.
bit. You can't just throw your stick out there and expect and not move your feet and
Right.
expect to win the matchup. So, um, I so that's my thought on the V hold. Some people are anti V hold. I'm not anti V hold if the player is comfortable and able and
Mm-hmm.
confident doing a V hold. So
Okay.
if your player is good at V holds, fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and if not, work on them. Like I think it's another tool. I think it's another opportunity. I am far from being anti V hold, but they need to be good at it. And they need to do it
Right.
correctly. Um, what you could do instead is just cross check, right? You can just drive hips,
Yeah.
cross check. Uh,
3/4 bench press. Get on the
yep,
hip.
yep, for
Yep.
sure. So, um, I think getting to hands and other physicality you can play around with. Like, do you want to be guys getting on hands sideline to sideline, or do you want
Right.
to kind of more box line to box line, or
Mm-hmm.
do you want them playing tight?
Mm-hmm.
That's something to think about. That's something you can play with. That could be a game to game thing, matchup to matchup thing, player to player thing. um I think at the younger levels, especially if you're I think at the younger levels for sure you should be teaching man on man defense.
Yeah.
I don't think you should just be dropping in a zone,
Yep.
especially at the youth levels,
Right.
um, right, to develop a lot
Mm-hmm.
of these skills that we're talking about right now, owning your matchups, uh, overall athleticism, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would lean towards, especially at the youth, especially in kind of developmental situations, having your deep holes, getting out to hands everywhere,
Yeah.
if I may say.
Yeah.
I would lean towards more that direction at least
Mm-hmm.
versus
For
sloughing
development.
off
Right.
um, in younger levels and developmental
Mm-hmm.
situations.
And I
And
will
it,
say, when I coached youth, it's kind of a side tangent.
yeah,
I had literally every guy on the team played club hockey.
yeah.
I mean, it was a scheduling